when you have conflict, meaning that there is something that has aggravated you, you're not happy about something, conflict is about to erupt in that relationship, right? The first thing you need to do, and I'm only talking based on what mine and your experiences, of course, is understanding the root of that conflict, right? Because if you don't know what the root of that conflict is and where it stems from, you will never be able to resolve it. All you're going to do is put a plaster over it. And then once that plaster is removed, it's going to carry on. You know, you really want to fix the problem. The underlying problem is what I'm trying to get at. Like, there's been times like where maybe like you've been short fused with me, and you might moan at every little thing I do in our relationship, but then it may not have anything to do with those little things that you're moaning at me for. It could literally be because yesterday, like, I did something that really pissed you off, and it's still stuck with you because we haven't discussed it. So it could be something from before. Do you know what I mean?
Sometimes, yeah, sure. It may just be that you didn't put your cup in the dishwasher, but at other times there could be this underlying issue that you actually need to make the effort to understand what that is in the first place.
I'd say the three biggest roots of conflict probably come from miscommunication, differences of opinion, and just things in the past that haven't been addressed.
And I also think the term agree to disagree can kind of be quite dangerous, because in a way it's just saying, do you know what, let's just get over this and we won't deal with it again. But that will come up again. You have to accept and face the problem at hand. You cannot skip over it. You can't agree to disagree. You have to have your disagreement and resolve that disagreement. Sometimes I'll say to you, you know, I'm fine, which we all know. Oh
my God, that is so frustrating. That is so frustrating.
I'm not fine. And you know, really deep down, I think what I want you to say is, well, I know you're not.
But trying to understand what you're thinking about at that time is mind-boggling.
But sometimes, and same with you.
What does I'm fine mean for a woman? I just don't get it.
Again, it's almost like
I'm fine can have 100 different meanings for you.
But
it can, innit?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But again, it's me technically saying to you, and I think you've definitely done it as well with me, or probably just...
men don't do that.
You maybe haven't said I'm fine, but you've probably just said, oh, don't worry about it. And the easy route for both of us would probably be, do you know what? She says she's fine, you say you're cool, and we don't say anything. But if we actually say, oh, you know, I'm really expecting you to say, no, Tanya, you're not fine. What's the problem? And you give me that opportunity to then be like, okay, I'm not fine.
You know, this is actually really interesting, right? Because when you say I'm fine, your I'm fine could literally mean I'm actually fine. It could also mean I'm extremely pissed off with you. It does.
I don't think I've ever said I'm fine and I genuinely believe.
It could also be I actually am fine, but I don't want you to think that I'm fine, and I want you to think that there's actually a problem. There's so many different variations of the woman's I'm fine.
No, I feel like if I'm really fine, it would be like I'm okay. The word fine means bad.
Trying to work you out, Tan, is the struggle of my life.
It's only taken you 15 years.
I'm still not there. I'm still working on it. Going back to when we say understanding the root of the conflict, all right? There's a big thing here because men and women have different emotion levels, I believe. I think women are a lot more emotional naturally. They're a lot more thin-skinned. They get offended a lot easier over the smallest things. Where if I say to you, don't worry about it, I genuinely mean don't worry about it, because men are so thick-skinned. They don't get as offended by the smallest kind of things.
See, I believe, I mean, obviously you're talking from a man's perspective, but from a woman's looking in, I feel like, yes, maybe we are more emotional, but I definitely think that you have the same feelings. If you're down, if anything, I feel like even though women are more emotional, they pick themselves up quicker.
What do you mean by pick themselves up quicker? Like, you mean you recover? Because, mate, you take ages to get over problems.
But I don't know. I still feel like women naturally just correct it quicker. And maybe that's why they're more emotional, because they're more keen to fix the problem quicker. Whereas a man might be like, don't worry about it, and he puts his feelings to one side.
Brush it under the carpet.
A woman will embrace those feelings, maybe show a lot more emotion, but because she wants to deal with it quicker.
I suppose there's different ways of dealing with it, I suppose. Yeah. As you've now spoken about the root of the conflict, the next big thing is communication, right? Because you've obviously kind of briefly just mentioned it there a little bit. Without saying the words, you've kind of spoken about it. But communication is key. But I do want to emphasize this because before communication is even a thought, when you're angry with someone, you need to sometimes take time just to cool off, because emotions can run really high when you're angry with someone. And when you know that there is conflict between you and your partner, and you argue or you debate things when you're angry, it's very hard to make rational decisions. It's very hard to make decisions that you're not going to regret. 9 times out of 10, I think you're going to regret things when you're angry. The things that you say and do.
I also think you're not in the right state of mind to resolve it. You know, it's like anything you want to work, you have to be willing to put the effort in.
100%.
And clearly when we're angry, you know, really all we see is red. And if anything, if we go straight to fix that problem at the time, the chances are we're both going for blood. And we're just going to go for arguments.
You sound like Arnold Schwarzenegger going like Predator. Jesus.
But it's true, right? Because me and you will say, all right, let's solve the problem. And then we're so angry at the time that all we're doing is shouting at each other. And we're not listening to one another.
No, we're not.
We're like you say sometimes, we're just waiting for the other person to stop talking and have our say. And we've realised over the years that it takes one of us to say, actually, do you know what? I'm not in the right frame of mind right now. You'll go and watch TV or YouTube. I'll go and clean up. We'll have a break for about an hour. Maybe even till the evening when we've calmed down. We've maybe had our own thought process. Yeah. And then we come after and we're like, look, it's time to talk.
Taking time to cool off is essential. Obviously, communication is the start of resolving any form of conflict in your relationship. But you cannot communicate when you're angry, upset, too much. You sometimes need to take time to cool off. Time is a healer. And if you just take time to cool off, your emotions will settle. And then you can now debate versus shout at each other. I always say debate, don't dictate. Yeah, I think that's a big, big deal. That's a mic drop, innit? Boom. That was powerful, innit? Yeah, I made that one myself. That was quite good. So when you communicate, right, I definitely think that there are key things that you should and should not do when you're communicating with your partner. Right? Number one.
Definitely learnt the hard way.
Yeah. Number one is do not be stubborn. Would we both agree on that?
And I would actually say we're probably both super stubborn.
I am so stubborn and you are too. And that's always a big problem for us. And that's something that I think we'll always be working on. It's not something that you could just fix because it's in our character, innately in our character to just be stubborn. And
because we clash because of it.
Sometimes even when I'm wrong, I need to make sure I feel like I'm right.
Out of pride.
Yeah, out of pride. It's just a principle thing. This is why I'm happy that we're having this conversation because it's real for us. It's real. We literally have conflict all the time.
Yeah, of course.
And it's such a real thing in a relationship. And most relationships could probably avoid divorce if they just know how to resolve conflict properly. Definitely don't be stubborn. And also a key thing that I'd say to do is allocate time for one another to speak and communicate. Like, for example, me and you, Tan, right? I'm pissed off about something that you've done, right? I'm going to say, Tan, here's 5 minutes. Let me know what your problems are and justify your corner. And then I'm going to then have 5 minutes to speak on my own self and why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And then after that, you get another 5 minutes to kind of respond to me and I get 5 minutes to respond to you. Because by doing that, it gives you a chance to firstly speak without getting interrupted or spoken over, which is very frustrating.
And you get nowhere.
And second of all, it gives the other person a chance to actually listen. Because when you know that you can't speak for 5 minutes and you're just there to listen because you know in 5 minutes you're going to be able to respond, then you actually listen to the other person versus just waiting for your turn to speak. Because we've spoken about this before, haven't we? We said, like, when people are arguing, most people are only quiet not because they're listening, but because they're waiting for their turn to speak.
Oh, yeah, 100%. We both do that, right? Yeah. In our heads, I'm like, you're arguing with me, and I'm just like, right, take note. He's done. Right, my turn.
Yeah.
And you may as well have not spoke.
That's what I'm saying.
But I think that's where you need to put your pride to one side and actually will lead on to the next point, but, understand where the other person is coming from.
You mentioned something about to see where the other person is coming from, which leads me on to the next point, which is empathy. Like, sometimes I don't agree with things that you say or do, but I need to try and put myself in your position because at the end of the day, your emotions are real. You are upset. You are angry.
Everyone is valid to feel the way they do. I need
to, whether I agree with it or not, I need to understand why you're in that position 100%. And why you feel the way you feel.
Without empathy, you will see no reason.
I totally agree because if you can't put yourself in someone else's shoes, resolving that conflict is going to be virtually impossible because you can't physically see what you've done wrong and why they feel that way. So you can't understand how to not make them feel that way again. Like I said, whether you agree with it or not,
100%.
Sometimes you need to understand where they're coming from and be in their shoes for a second.
You need to show you care. We love each other. We're our life partners. If we don't care about one another's feelings, where's that happiness?
100%. So communication is step 1, right?
Absolutely.
We're to put it in steps.
Yeah.
You need to be able to empathize. So empathy is step 2. I'd say step 3 is now compromise.
Yeah.
Because compromise is a huge factor because once you've communicated your problems, you've put yourself in the other person's shoes. You now understand where they might be coming from. You understand what their problem is. It's now a case of, okay, what can I do to prevent this happening in the future, to prevent you feeling a certain way? And what can you do to prevent me feeling a certain way in the future? And it doesn't even have to be something big. It doesn't even have to be something that never makes this issue come back in the future. It's just sometimes baby steps is all you need.
We're not perfect, right? We've all got our flaws, our imperfections.
Well, you're perfect.
I'll give you the fiver in a second. But what we need to understand is, although you shouldn't have to fully change for someone, you do have to make certain adjustments if you're going to be with someone. You
Agreed.
have to
Totally agree.
have compromise. So, like you said, if we've empathized, we see where each other's coming from, and we realise, okay, putting my stubbornness to one side, putting my pride to one side.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't do this, or maybe I should do that. If you can see that small thing that you can do to not only make your relationship easier, but your life easier,
100%.
do it. Be willing to compromise and make that change.
I totally agree, Tan. It's crazy, right? Because we have so much conflict in our relationships. People don't understand. There are so many couples that have conflict, and you look at them and you think they're the healthiest couple, but I think we are a happy couple and we are healthy in our relationship because we show that we care through conflict. We meet each other halfway sometimes, and we do communicate a ton load.
Like we said at the beginning, you have to use your conflict as an opportunity to grow and resolve and learn. And that's what we've learned over the years, that it's not about, oh my God, we argue too much. We have constant conflict. We disagree all the time. We argue a lot, but we resolve a lot. 100%. We have conflict a lot, but we work through it.
Yes.
It's not about avoiding, it's going through it.
Totally agree, Tan. And the last point I want to make is trust. Because once you've communicated, you've empathized, you've compromised, the biggest thing here now is trust. Because you need to be able to trust that your partner is going to actually make the changes and make the improvements that they've almost said that they're going to do in that conflict resolution process. Let's just say, for example, say you felt that I didn't give you much attention. And I say, right, Tan, in future, when you get home, I'm going to give you a hug, a kiss, and I'm going to ask how your day was. You need to trust that I'm actually going to do that. And I'm not just going to forget after 2 days and just go back to doing whatever I was doing that caused the conflict initially.
There's definitely been times, and obviously this is what we've learned over the years.
Yeah.
We will argue about the same thing.
Yeah.
We'll say it's resolved, technically brush it under the carpet, and then no changes are made, or short-term changes are made, and then quite quickly it comes up again. But what we've learned to do in these steps is actually believe that talking to one another and having these arguments is worth it. Is worth the conflict to get that resolution. We've learned over the years our relationship will always be a priority because it's always going to need effort. It's not something that you can just leave to run in the background and it will all be okay. And I think that's how we have learned to be open to arguing and fixing our problems.
Every relationship has the potential to crumble and to end in divorce if it's not looked after.
We've come close to breaking up a lot of the times. I mean, after 15 years... to say it's all sunshine and rainbows is a lie.
But those dips that caused us to almost break up I think, was essential for our relationship.
Absolutely,
because it taught us massive lessons. It made us appreciate each other, I think, more.
100%.
And it strengthened our relationship because we showed how much we cared about each other and how important the resolution process is whenever there's a form of conflict.
We learned from our mistakes, and also we almost had glimpses of life without each other, and I think that added the fear, right? And we realised, as hard as it is and as much effort as it takes, our relationship is always worth fighting for.
I suppose that brings us to the end of today's episode, where we've kind of gone through almost like a step-by-step process of how we resolve conflict in our relationship.
Without consciously doing it, we have basically created this step-by-step process.
Yeah, it's like the ultimate guide.
Exactly. We naturally follow this. It's not like a checklist, but we just see that these are the things that we know worked for us to resolve our conflict.
And on that note, thank you so much for watching. We really, really appreciate everyone that is subscribed to our channel. If you are not subscribed, please hit that subscribe button. And if you enjoyed this video and did find value in it, then please hit that like button because it really does help our channel reach more people. So we've spoken about conflict today.
And talking about how many different things come under conflict.
And I suppose one of the biggest questions that we answered last week was, is masturbation wrong in a relationship? Very controversial.
Find out what we had to say about masturbation in a relationship in this video right here.
See you there.
Bye.